Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of Mujer De Exito, Unbounded, Woman of Success Without Limits. Once again, if you have made it to this podcast, like I said before, you are here because you were meant to hear this message. And today, ahora, amigas, mujeres chulas, ahora tengo una persona muy especial. I have a special person sitting right here with me. And even though we're on the separate coasts, right? She's over in Florida, I'm over in California. We still come together, we still support each other, and thus we show you that it can be done. And I have with me today a Mujer de Exito, Unbounded herself, Gilza Fort Martinez, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Bienvenida a Gilza Fort Martinez. Ella habla español, entonces aquí estamos para escuchar su historia. Gracias, Gilza. Thank you so much for tell us a little bit about you.
Well, Marty, thank you. Gracias. This is wonderful to spend a bit of time on a Friday afternoon, los viernes sociales, right? To be able to have that. I am a marriage and family therapist for over 25 years. I am a wife. I'm a mother of two grown daughters at this point, two young women who are out there kind of navigating their paths. And I, after as many years of working with couples, families, but particularly with women, you know, really wanting to help them navigate their paths through all of the, you know, slings and arrows, as they say, that life throws at us, I still really enjoy what I do. I really think it's important to be able to be the one that holds the light at the end of that dark tunnel sometimes. So it's still a passion for me.
I love what you said right now, holding that light at the end of the dark tunnel. You know, so many times I remind myself that, you know, I'm coming out of the dark. I'm coming out of the dark, and there's people behind me, and I'm holding the light so that they can see the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think one of the things is that when we as leaders, you know, go through our own thing, it just makes us stronger. You know, stronger for whatever it is that we've been through. And, you know, and so we need to go back and be grateful. Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. So you're working for yourself. You're an entrepreneur, ahorita,
Yes.
right? But when did it start, and how did you get your start?
I have been in private practice for, like I said, over 25 years. For me, it started kind of a two-pronged thing. See, I was supposed to be an attorney. As a first generation, the oldest daughter in a family of Cuban refugees, because my parents really considered themselves political refugees all of their life, I was supposed to be an attorney like my father. And I promise you, Marty, I tried. I really tried. I went through junior year in college trying history, political science, pre-law, really trying to be able to do, you know, the cultural and the traditional kind of expectations that we all have, definitely as children, but definitely in my case, I was the first daughter, and my father believed in education, and that was what I was supposed to do. So it was quite a blow to him when I said to him, you know, papi, te quiero, te adoro, all of this, but I just can't do law. I just can't. And it took us many years. I mean, he always supported me. He and my mother always supported my ideas, but it took him many years for him to understand why did I want to do this? What was it about psychology that called me? And until he finally understood that, we both helped people. You know, my father was an amazing attorney. My father was a defense attorney. So my father believed in the letter of the law. It wasn't, it wasn't often about money for him. It was really about, righting the wrong kind of thing. And for him to really understand then that I was helping people too, but in a different way. And so that was one piece of wanting to be on my own, because at the very least, then he said, bueno, por lo menos tienes que trabajar, tener tu bufete. You have to put your own place together, right? I mean, you're not going to work at a hospital all your life or something like that. So that was one prong. And then, yes, you do all the things that you need to do to become a clinician in Florida. You get licensed and you have supervision and all of that. And at a certain point, I did want to have, my own four little walls here, the ones and that I painted and that I knew I wanted to really create a space where people could really unload and unpack. It's such a scary thing, this whole mystery of doing counseling or doing therapy, that I really wanted to create a space that was inviting and that was safe enough that people would be able to leave their, kind of their stuff here and consider other paths as they, walked out the door, kind of. And so for me, that was always my vision, was to
Mm.
do things a little bit in my way. And then, like you were saying, I created for a long time, for many years, a practice primarily of women, but not solely, of women clinicians. And we worked with the family from infancy all the way to, adulthood, dealing with different kinds of populations, and really kind of worked together, referring to each other, working in that sense. So for a long time, I had a team, loosely, but we had a team that worked together to kind of help a family through different kinds of transitions. So at this point, I'm kind of back to doing more of my own thing. A lot of the
Ah.
little chickies that I trained and all of that have kind of gone to do some of their own thing. But it's all been a great part of, as you said, kind of creating my own thing and really wanting it, because I wanted to be able to do it my way.
Now, let me ask you this. So, you're a licensed marriage and family therapist,
Therapist.
right?
Mhm.
And so, why that? Why, why family? Why marriage? Why, what was it about that drew you in? And was it tough? What did it look like when you sat at in college on, I
Mhm.
know what it looked like. What color did it look like for you?
Um, I mean, why the marriage and family track? Because for me, the family is the first social experiment that we are all involved in. Regardless of what that experiment looks like, whether we have primary caretakers or we don't, whatever that looks like for us, creates very much the way that we interact with the world. Good,
Mm.
bad, beautiful, ugly, it all begins with that initial state. And the way that people come together, the way that people stay together, what are ways to help people stay together in more loving and more empathic ways, all of those things were what called me, within the large field of mental health. What really called me was, well, I want to work on that initial, you know piece and structure.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's very insightful to be able to see that, to see it that way. I mean, that's
Mhm.
beautiful. I love the way that you kind of said, I want to see that, because that is the blossoming of everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about being a Latina in that era and in that during that genre of, Latinas were supposed to be, bathroom cleaners,
Mhm.
secretaries,
Right.
that type of thing.
Right. See, like I said to you, I was very blessed in that, for Cuban parents, that came over at the beginning of the revolution, and they were in their mid 30s. My parents were pretty progressive, for particularly around education. So education was expected. I needed to do something, and it wasn't going to be a secretary in my family. Okay. There was that kind of higher expectation. But as you said, then you hit the reality of being, the only dark-haired, dark-eyed little girl in my, sixth grade class when we first moved to Miami. So uh, those were, I had the expectations at home and some of the support there, and then we would go out into the rest of the world, and it was nice. I could be a nurse. I could be a social worker. That
Yeah, there you
within
go.
my field, the social work was okay. But I was going to work for somebody. I was going to work in a hospital. I was going to work in an agency. So those were, as you were saying, sitting in the college classroom when I finally was able to say to my dad, Bobby, this is what I want to do. And this is going to be a degree that I have to keep going because I'm not going to, be able to stay with just a bachelor's in psychology. It was hard to look around and really see the entrepreneur piece. Okay.
Mm.
Because people said to me, oh, this is great, you'll get your master's degree. I had people that helped me get licensed. I've been blessed with strong, particularly strong women that have helped me throughout my career. Pero I heard a lot at the beginning, shortly after I was licensed. Pero you're not going to be able to live off of private practice. He'll say you're going to have to do private practice always on the side. You need to have a job, and then you can see a few people on the side. And I was like, pero this is a lot of work, to have a side job. And I heard that a lot. Te vas a morir de hambre. You can't sustain a private practice. And I didn't come from parents like that. So
Ah,
definitely, I was like, well, I liked working in the hospital, and I felt like each piece of my path has served me. But at a certain point, I was like, no, I really want to do this. I have ideas that I want to be able to share and do in my way. And so that was a big one, really being able to kind of keep my head up and say, well, I'm not going to make millions of dollars, but I can make a living.
mhm,
I can do okay. I can pay all my bills.
mhm, mhm.
You know.
So, so, what what was the turning point? When did what was it a certain situation? What was it? Was it, you know, maybe you were felt what it was it that you felt that it was like, okay, ya, basta. Ahora me salgo y sigo adelante como yo solita, you know.
Well, I'll tell you, that was more of a personal situation for me, because professionally I was moving along, but I had married at around 22, 23, like a lot of us do. It was definitely the way to be able to have more life experiences when you grow up in a very traditional Cuban family. Okay. Um, and I grew up with that kind of Cinderella story. I'm going to find my prince, and I'm going to live happily ever after. And then there was infidelity, and that was devastating for me.
Oh,
And
wow.
that all happens just as I'm graduating from my master's program. Okay. And I was devastated.
Wow.
And the working with other people, I worked in a hospital at that point, that was very helpful. I had a really good community that many of those people are my friends still today, again 25
Mm,
years later.
mhm,
They really helped me through that piece. But it also, as you said, really clarified for me, you know what, there are some things that I'm going to have to end up doing here by myself. This Cinderella thing, is not working for me. It's not, the prince wasn't as charming, and his horse was a little dirty. It wasn't, it wasn't the
I love
silky
it.
horse. Yeah. So the
Wow.
turning point for me ends up being um, personal. It takes me about a year and change after I divorced that I meet my current husband, the father of my daughters. And he is a very much of a businessman, and in his conservative way, a risk taker, and he really was the final push that said to me, I mean, what do you have to lose here? You are licensed. You have, a resume. Worst case scenario, you go back and you get a job. But what is the worst case scenario? You go. Let's get a little office together. Get yourself going. So he was the final push that said, "Listen, we don't. Neither one of us has any money right now. What? How much more can we lose at this point? Let's just go with it." And that really was the final push for me. And I just, I like I said, I've had mentors along the way, and so networking for me is super important, always being able to talk with people. But the personal piece is what finally pushed me into I think I can do this okay on my own.
Wow. What an amazing story. I love, that you have so experienced, and isn't it true that as we experience, ourselves, then we rise up from the dust like a
Mhm.
phoenix, right? And then
Yes.
we stand strong and we become that beacon of light.
Hmm.
And that sounds like, something that you have done, you know, through your experience. But for my listeners, a lot of them are mujer-preneurs, and I call them mujer-preneurs because they, like I said, they're Latina, bilingual, or not, right?
Hmm.
They can be bilingual because I want to make sure that people understand that not every Latina is bilingual.
Right.
And so for them, for somebody that is kind of, you know, going through, let's say, infidelity,
Hmm.
because that kind of tends to be, more commonplace than not. I hate to say
Yes.
that, but
I hate to say, but
and
yes.
and I'm sure you know better than I do, but what would you say to them? What would you, as they're going through this, qué les puedes ofrecer? Unas palabritas.
I tell you that my there's two main things that I consider kind of my secret sauce, so to speak. Okay. One is to always be willing to be a learner, a student. Okay. Um, Estar dispuesto a aprender, because we are taught one way, and many times we think that's the only way that there is because this is the way things have always been done. And in reality, it's not. Okay. We have to be able to be open to trying something new and never knowing. And then the other piece for me is, just every once in a while, particularly as you were saying, as a mujerpreneur, I've been then, a wife and a mom, and for many years until earlier this year, a caregiver for my parents as they
Mm.
aged. Okay, so lots of different roles that women have and that we are expected to play simultaneously,
Yes.
and right, and to be able to do them at 150% all the time, expectations across the board. That's not just for us as Latinas, right? But I think it's very pronounced for us as Latinas. So
Right.
for me, then the second piece is about, can you hit the pause button every once in a while and just, kind of breathe.
Mm.
And then you're going to have to believe. You're going to have to step in because other people are going to naysay you. There's going to be lots of people, sometimes within your family, but definitely in the circles around you, that are going to tell you, no, you can't do that. ¿Cómo vas a hacer eso? ¿Vas a dejar a los niños en la
Mm.
casa? You're going to leave your kids and you're going to do a business trip. You're going to do, so there's going to be a lot of that, sometimes with good intentions, but there's going to be a lot of that. And I really I tell my clients all the time, breathe, just stop a second, take a breath, and then believe. You got to really clearly, what's your vision? What's your vision? And I want you to draw it out for me. And I want you to put in color. And I want you to, so that you can figure out how your pieces fall together. I started my practice when my oldest daughter was 2.5. So my husband and I
Mhm.
were both new parents trying to figure this out. And I was afraid, as you said. So I
Mhm.
kept a job during the day. 8 to 4, I worked in the hospital. And then I started to see clients from 4 to 9. And at a
Mhm.
certain point, 12, 15-hour days with a toddler was just not sustainable, right? Not sustainable.
Right.
So for me, it was those would be my secret sauce. You got to be willing to learn. I had to be willing to ask people to say, is this okay? But not one person, kind of a tribe. And then I had to step into it at a certain point. I'm going to have to believe in myself because, right, ain't nobody going to do it for me, kind of thing.
Right, right. And so now, fast forward, you have a thriving clinical practice,
Mhm.
and you have a team.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think is like a big, I want to say a big hurdle for a lot of, the women that I coach, the
Mhm.
mujeres, they're like, okay, they can be solopreneurs.
Right.
But when it comes to being, to adding, like, okay, I need a bookkeeper, or
Mhm.
I need a CPA, or I
Mhm.
need a, receptionist, or I need, I think for women
Mhm.
and Latinas especially, very pronounced, we grew up with that stigma, with that mentality. Tú puedes hacerlo todo,
Todo. Right.
todo.
Mhm.
Y si no puedes, no lo hagas,
Right.
right? You
Right.
can you can do it all. For my English speakers, you can do it all. And if you can't do it all, then don't do it,
Right.
right? And so it's like, oh my God, at what point do we like, okay, give some of the reins away? So how
Mhm.
did you come up, how many people do you have in your office now, and how did you begin to give the reins away, or how did you do that?
I have to tell you, that's a constant struggle for me, even as many years as I have. Um, at this point, I have about four people that work with me, and not for me, but with me, and all clinicians, all marriage and family therapists. Yes, all of us actually happen to be marriage and family therapists right now, and it's a lesson that that fear of letting go of control, like, okay, I got this. I'm already on the edge. I'm already, doing something I'm not supposed to do, right? Being on my own. No me quiero morir de hambre. All of these. So for many years, I held very tightly to the reins. Other than an accountant, which again my husband forced me to do. He said, you don't do numbers. And it's true, I don't think in numbers. So he's like, other than an accountant, I was doing everything, myself, from cleaning the office to billing the clients, to actually sitting with my clients and helping them through their transitions. I have to tell you that only 3 years ago did I finally say, okay, it's time to really, trust everything you're telling people. Now you really have to step into it again, right? I trusted once 25 years ago, and then now I have to really trust again, that I need people to really guide me. And this was just before the pandemic happened, that I was in
Mm,
that transition where I invested not only some time, but more importantly, money
mhm,
on myself, on my business, where I got into the technology world, created, a website, and got into social media, but I hired people to actually do it. And that was
mhm.
huge for me.
Yeah.
Huge for me, Marty, to have a team. I have two, I call them young women because, they could be
Mhm.
my daughters at this point, but they are Mujer-preneurs themselves, and they have helped me really navigate this whole, scary world of technology. And that has been so freeing for me, because these
Mm.
kinds of things of being able to have a conversation with you only are happening because they help me create that. I
Mm.
don't know how to do that, or to find, exciting people like you. I don't know how to do that, you know. So really, only 3 years ago, and I would, any woman that I talk to now, business wise, I that's one of the first things I tell them. I said, you have to be willing to let go of some of the control in order to gain more of your control back.
Right.
Yeah,
Freedom, freedom. And that isn't that what we really want at the
yeah,
end of the day? Even, when I sit with my, when with my clients and I tell them, okay, so, why do you want to start a business? Let's take a look at this. What's your
exactly.
vision? What's your goal? Let's put a mission together. You've got to know who you're serving. You got to
Mhm.
bring clarity to who you're serving and why are you serving them and the difference between passion and everything. And at the end of the day, what's that big goal? And it's all, and first of all, they think it's money,
Mhm.
right?
All right.
And then I have to go beyond that. I have to teach them. We stop at money. As mujerpreneurs, we stop, quiero dinero,
Right.
pero ese dinero que
Uh-huh.
te va a dar, what is that money going to give you? That's where it is.
Right.
If you
What's it
can't go
mean?
beyond, if you can't go beyond the money,
Right.
really truly, you're not going to be able to thrive,
Right.
because as a businesswoman, you've got to see what is it about the money part that you want. And at the end of the day, we all want that freedom that you just said.
Yeah.
It's truly the freedom.
Mhm.
Money's just a means, to an end. And the end is truly freedom of time, freedom of choice, freedom of, because we want the freedom to say, today no quiero hacer nada,
Right.
or today I want to go over here, or
Exactly.
today, and so when we finally break through and realize that what we all really want in life is
Mhm.
to give us back some time, then
Mhm.
I think that, that's helped me as a business coach help them finally really begin to, expand, because if you don't let go, there's no way you can make a six-figure income.
No.
Si
It's,
no,
it's
as my dad would say,
mhm.
tienes que soltar las riendas para que el caballo vuela. And,
Mhm.
and so my horse would fly, you've
Right.
got to let go of the reins in order for your horse to be free.
Right. And it's scary.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing, to let go of the reins like that. What if the horse runs away? What if you fall over? What if you get run over? It's a scary thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. It
Yes.
is. It's in, and one of the things that people need to understand is in business, if you've made it past 5 years,
Mhm.
that's great. Keep going. But
Mhm.
there's the chance that you're going to be a millionaire in 5 years is, maybe not a truth that you should be searching for.
Right. Right. Right.
But it's just amazing like that.
Mhm.
How even though you're helping people with their relationships, I want to
Mhm.
say,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we're all helping people. you
Mhm.
know um,
Right.
I'm helping with them with their relationship to their business, you're helping them with their relationship to their home family life,
Mhm.
which is all in kind of put together, verdad?
It does. It all goes together. If mama ain't happy at home, it's very hard then, right, to really be focused and clear at work, and vice versa. So you're right. It all definitely goes together.
I know it does. And right now that you said that, it's so funny because I had never heard that before. And one of my mentors, who I don't think lives anymore, he was, I was in a field. I was teaching math, dance, and computers, right, and ESL. So, when I went to college, I didn't, I went to, I didn't feel like I could teach the college algebra. I just
Mhm.
didn't, that wasn't, and he was like, no, you are going to teach people need your expertise in English and Spanish and math.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, and he beckoned me to, to move into the college scene,
Mhm.
God, for about a year and a half before he actually opened the door for me and said, you guys have to talk to this woman. She does, scores are going up everywhere she goes and stuff like that. But he was the one, he was at that point in time, he was 80.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he was still teaching, and not only that, but he was still working out. So he was the strongest 80-year-old that I ever knew, right? And he would challenge me to do that many abs because I was in the fitness department too, and he would challenge me. And one day he says to me, and he gets up in the middle of our workout. He looks as and he gets up and he walks away and he's going toward the door. And I go, wait a minute, Burdette. I go, where are you going? He says, it's time to go. And I said, why? And he said, cause mama said so. And he looks at me and he says, cause if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy, honey.
That's it.
I was
That's
like,
it. Okay. Even my father, who was a defense attorney, dealt with, you know, high end criminals here in Miami. When my mother got a certain cast, a certain look in her face, ¿Tuviste a tu mamá? Did you hear your mother? Me and my father bajaba la cabeza, and nobody could get my father to do that but my mother. So you're right. You're right.
yeah, and and one of the things that I think that is like a stigma that kind of follows us as Latinas is, we can give that look.
Right.
And I remember so clearly when my oldest one time, had brought home some friends and I had a spread for them and things like that. And I had to go back to supervise a basketball game. But I said, here, is everything you need and this and that. And always eating healthy and stuff. And one of the kids goes, oh, is this all you have to eat? And my daughter was like,
Right. Exactly.
right. And then I just gave the look. I just looked at the child. I didn't
Right.
say anything. I just looked at him, and my oldest goes, oh no, you don't want to do that. She just gave you the look, honey. I'm getting up. I'll see you later.
See you later. Exactly. Exactly.
But that
So
it's that look, ¿verdad?
it
Tenemos
is.
esa.
It is. It's a particular look. They all know it. My daughters laugh. You only develop it after you're a mother. I don't know. That's at least that's been my experience. I don't think
Yes.
I had the look before I had my kids. Could be wrong, but in my case,
I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. It's that look that you get that it just,
right,
there's something about that, you feel blood coming up and it just goes
yeah,
right into your eyes, right?
right, exactly. And the eyebrow. I have one eyebrow that would rise. With the. I'm not sure you want to go to that next step.
Yes, and so let's talk a little bit about we have something in common that I didn't know we have. That's what I love about doing these podcasts.
Mhm.
My mom just passed a year ago, but I had to take care of her because she had Alzheimer's. She was a victim of elder abuse,
Oh, I'm sorry.
and not from my father, but from her second husband.
Mm,
And we talk about that, that many, you know, I didn't like going to the therapy groups
mm,
because I I heard a lot of complaining, and there weren't a lot. In fact, there was only one other Latina in this therapy group when
Mhm,
I first started,
mhm,
because my mom had Alzheimer's, and I was gonna be, I was her caregiver, and so I had to pull back from my business, pull back from
mm,
my job, and do everything, be able to have, still a part-time college professorship or associate professorship, and still,
mhm,
you know, the other job was my fitness instructing because I've always done that, and then be a mom, a wife,
right.
and a daughter caregiver.
Yes.
And to the point where, I had to change diapers that I didn't ever think I had to do,
Mhm.
and
Right. It's very
that
tough.
yeah, so
Mhm,
for that, like I said, I had to pull away from that therapy group because all I heard was, complaining.
mhm,
"I have to do this, I have to do that," and in my voice, it wasn't like I don't like the words "I have to," I like the words "I got to."
mm,
So I got the chance to
mhm.
really be a mom for my mom.
Yes. Mhm,
And I got the chance because, you spend all your time growing up, but, you talk about that. Tell
mhm,
me a little bit about what was that for you? And if we're doing that as Latinas, we have a tendency to to be more caregivers. There are more Latina caregivers than
mhm,
any other, I've done the research, than any
mhm,
other ethnicity out there.
mm.
And I think it's our deber, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's our loyalty to familia, I think.
Yes.
And, but what would you say to somebody, now I can say, this too shall pass, and enjoy it. Those would be my words, and realize it's a
Mm.
blessing. But what would you say to somebody to help them through that?
I mean, that's a lovely way to look at it. What you just said there, in the sense that I got to, I too, when my father died about 7 years ago, but my mother was still here then, so that kind of eased his transition, his death, by having her around and so forth. And I again am been very blessed in many ways. My mother was really in pretty good shape, mentally. Her body definitely started to decline, and my mother just passed now in June of this year.
Mm,
Um, it I too think that I got the opportunity to really help my mother kind of go through this transition of being, my go-to person always in my life, to me really having to do more and more for her, and to do it in a I would say in a dignified way,
mm,
to give her as much of her, space, or her independence. She did not want to live with me. She stayed living in the house where she and my dad lived. Um, the most I was able to convince my parents was to move near me. So they were like around the block from me, but in their own home. And um, it was very challenging. As you said, my challenge became in really convincing her that she needed more assistance. So to have, my mother was, la que mandaba en su casa, the one
mhm,
in charge, and to
mhm.
start to bring in people, so personas extrañas a su casa,
Oh,
because she did not want to live with me, even though we had a great relationship, and with my husband as well. But she wanted her space. Like she
mhm,
said to me, "Me quieres reducir a un cuarto de una
mhm.
casa." So from a house to live in one room. And that
Right.
was very, powerful for me when she said, I really don't want that.
Mm,
So my struggle in the last 2 or 3 years as she declined was really letting having her let me help her.
right.
Having her let me help her. And so, but I do have to say that, like you, I feel that the time that I spent with her, like every little circle was closed. I didn't leave anything unsaid or undone. And that's
Right.
one of the things that I really encourage either my friends or my clients. You know, death is a part of life, and if you can really just, you know, be okay with it, meaning let's have a conversation about it. Let's have a discussion about where that falls in your life and with all of these roles. Because like you said, I didn't stop being a mom or a wife. I stepped away from my practice a little bit, a few months, right,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
as my mother really deteriorated and then died. But it's really about, for me, let's talk about it. Let's have all the conversations. To as much as you can, leave no stone unturned, kind of thing. Yeah.
Ah, sounds great.
Mhm.
Sweetie, I could sit here and talk to you for a long time.
Yes.
And I appreciate your time. I so appreciate this charla we're having. And I want my listeners to be able to reach out to you. And I think you have something also. Can you guide them? What do you have for them?
The best way to find me is my website, which is gilzafort.com, just my first name and my maiden name, my father's name there, Fort. Um, uh, that's where you can best get a feel for who I am and how I do things, and some of my Monday morning musings, as I call them, when I do a little bit of writing or on the blog, on my blog. And then, as we were saying before, on Instagram, you can find me at Tough Love Healer.
Love
I
it. Love it.
am always happy to chat with anybody that wants a little conversation, a little, you know,
And
redirection, any of that.
do you do any Zoom, any long distance, work?
Yes, I do. I use a different platform that's called
Okay.
Doxy, but
Okay.
I do both virtual as well as, I am still
Perfect.
old school, no matter what my kids say, and I do a lot of people here in the office, but I do the pandemic taught me how to,
Yeah.
again, keep being a student, keep learning.
Yes. Keep learning. Yes, I
Mhm.
believe so. Mija, it has been a pleasure, un
Yes,
placer
un
estar aquí
placer.
contigo. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for joining me today on Mujer de Éxito Unbounded. You are
Wonderful.
truly a Mujer de Éxito Unbounded.
I appreciate
Gracias por estar aquí. Listeners, please make sure to find her and follow her on Instagram. She is a wealth of knowledge. Today we only touched very little on what she works with, but you can tell that she is an amazing woman. She is an amazing person. And I'm just so blessed to have met you. And
Thank you.
hopefully, this won't be the last time that we actually
I'd
enjoy each other's company.
I'd be happy to
So,
chat with you, and if you ever get onto my side of the country, un cafecito, I treat
igual,
you to un cafecito.
igual. Cuando te vengas para acá, también, right? We're on
Igual,
two
exactly,
ends. We're on the two different coasts, right? Two different
exactly,
coastlines. Thank
absolutely.
you.
Well,
Thank you. And as always, have a beautiful day, my listeners. As always, hit that. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button that you can always see when my guests are on. And you can listen to the audio. It drops December 16th. And you can listen to it anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast shows. As always, I'm so incredibly grateful. Gracias y que tengan bonito día.